Welcome, friend. I'm TK, your tour guide to the past, and you are listening to For the Love of History, the podcast where we talk about world history, women's history, and weird history. Did you know, my sweet little bear claw, that Socrates, or Socrates, if you're nasty, was taught by a woman? I know. Okay, it's very exciting. Today, we are about to dive deep into Greek history to uncover the life, legacy, and lies told about Socrates' teacher, Aspesia. We're about to get spicy, we're about to lightly poison some people, and we're about to get some righteous justice. But before all of that can happen, a bit of housekeeping must be done to keep the lights on here at History Headquarters. So, first and foremost, up front right now, we as in me, is planning a History BFF trip with Trova Trip to Japan in August of 2025. So that is August 24th through the 30th. And if you didn't know, August 25th is my birthday. So this is like half a History BFF trip, half a birthday trip for me. We're going to 3 cities, Osaka, Kyoto, and Nara. We're going to explore. We'll be making matcha. We'll be going to temples. We'll be going to shrines. We'll be floating down the river and eating so much food. It's going to be crazy. So if you would like to join me on that trip from August 24th to the 30th, you can book your spot in the link down in the show notes. You only have to have 25% of the full payment to book your spot, and then the rest of it has to be paid 3 months before the trip. So to book your spot, all you need is a 25% down payment, and you're good to go. And the first 8 people who sign up for the trip get a $100 discount for those early bird spots. 2 early bird spots are already taken right now. So if you'd like to go on the trip with me and other History BFFs, go book your spot right now. I hope I can see you in Japan. I would love to see you here with me and nerding out, just straight hardcore nerding out for like a whole week. And our final piece of housekeeping today is a final reminder for the community census for the For the Love of History community census for 2025. It will be open for a few more days. You can tell me about the things you enjoyed last year, some things you'd like to see, some topics you would like included in the next year, some guests that you would like to have. And by filling out this form, you also put yourself in the running for a t-shirt or one of my favorite books to win one of those. So if you'd like to have your voice heard in the community census and you'd like to put your name in the drawing for a t-shirt or a book, then you can go ahead and do that and fill out the For the Love of History community census. And with that, it is time to put on your best himation, which is basically like a Greek toga. Grab a goblet of your finest libation, hop in the time machine, and let's get to it. It's late 450 BCE. You're in the center of Athens in a beautiful stately home, sitting in a courtyard at the center of a house. And you can smell the sweet fruits on the altar of Zeus that are slowly being baked in the sun. Incense swirl all around the air as philosophers, rhetoricians, and political leaders sit on carpets and stools in a semicircle, staring intently at a woman deep in the middle of a lesson on philosophy and rhetoric. Men like Pericles, Socrates, Xenophon, and Cicero are sitting like school children, listening so carefully to one woman, Aspasia of Miletus, arguably the greatest rhetorician in Greek history. For many delicious donuts, this may be your first time hearing the name Aspasia. Until about 6 months ago, I had never heard of her either. In my over a decade of history education and teaching, I had never heard of the woman who supposedly taught not only Socrates, but also the great politician in general, Pericles, who heretofore shall be known as Perry the Greek Platypus or Periwinkle, depending on my mood. But the lack of information on Aspasia is not a coincidence, dear one. It's not some unfortunate cosmic accident. but a planned attack that has been going on for literally thousands of years. And today, you and I will be doing our part in uncovering her story and placing Aspasia squarely back in her own chapter in the big, big book of history. So, let us begin at the beginning. Who was Aspasia? And how did she end up teaching some of the greatest minds in Greek history? East across the Aegean Sea was a city called Miletus. Around 470 BCE, a young girl won the familial lottery when the stork dropped her off at the home of a learned philosopher in the city that is now considered the birthplace of European philosophy. Aspasia's father, Axius, was one of Miletus's most esteemed cosmology and philosophy teachers. And this man gets a delicious donut good dad stamp of approval because he taught his precious daughter, Aspasia, everything he knew. She grew up with what we can only assume was an incredible education, given who her father was and the social acceptance of women in education in Miletus. Unfortunately, however, for Aspasia, Miletus had been ravaged by several invasions from the Persians and was in a swift downward spiral. By the time she was in her late teens, early 20s, the dates are a little bit hazy, both Axius and Aspasia saw the signs of the coming war and agreed that Aspasia would flee to Athens with her father's most prized books and essays. Alone, she hopped on a little fishing boat with only her father's writings and what she could carry, and she set sail for the new philosophy epicenter of the Greek world, Athens. When she arrived, her fellow Miletunite person from Miletus, her bestie Hippodamus, which is a great name, greeted her and was like, "Hey girl, you gotta come and meet my friends. They're gonna flip. They're gonna be so excited to meet you." This group of friends turned out to be people like Socrates, Pericles the Platypus, and Cicero, who has no good nickname. Sorry about that, Cicero. And this moment is where most stories about Aspasia start. Because not long after her arrival to Athens, a situationship between her and Pericles the Platypus started. Apparently, Periwinkle was smitten with Aspasia, so he divorced his wife, whom he had 2 children with, to apparently be with Aspasia. Did they get married? Did they not get married? We're not really sure, because there's no concrete evidence or one specific story about how it all went down. This information is very foggy, which if you've been a delicious donut for a while now, you know that this is when people start filling in the blanks with wild accusations like Aspasia seducing Periwinkle because she was power hungry, and that she slept her way into the innermost circle of smart guy bestie philosophers in Athens and wasn't included on her own merit. And these unknown factors and rumors have been used to fuel smear campaigns against her for literal centuries, thousands of years. Okay. The very ambiguous nature of Aspasia's stories means that she is a woman of many faces. Depending on who is telling the story, she is portrayed as the sexy consort of Periwinkle Pericles, satisfied with simply doing the downstairs disco with a powerful man. Sometimes she's portrayed as a joke told among Greek historians and philosophers. Just like a silly little woman playing in academia. How funny, guys. Hilarious. I'm laughing so hard right now. So hard. But things are not all bad. Sometimes she is given her flowers and is portrayed as a learned woman in Athens who taught some of Greece's greatest minds how to have great minds. So putting these rumors and slanderous accusations aside, let's talk about what we know Aspasia did. For starters, she taught philosophy and rhetoric. Rhetoric is just the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing. She also weighed in on philosophical matters. She taught women about the economy of running a home, not like home ec, not like cooking and cleaning, but like the economy of running a home, the finance behind it, the planning behind it, all of the different logistical things that you have to do to run an effective household. The logistics and economy of running a house is very serious business, and anyone who says otherwise needs to go to their mother or whoever was the homemaker in their house, get down on their knees and apologize, because it's a lot. It's very mentally taxing. Just to give you an example, like a math example of the kind of logistics that you have to do, if you planned just breakfast and dinner, we're gonna leave out lunch, breakfast and dinner for a family of 3 for a full year. I did the math ahead of time. It is 2,190 meals. 2,190 meals that you have to plan and or cook. Okay? Planning and cooking. You got to do that. And that's just a small fraction of domestic life. So sometimes, speaking from experience, you need a little bit of help, because that shit is hard as hell. But I digress. Do not slander the name of homemakers. I will not stand for it. Double digression. Okay, here we go. So, she also weighed in on philosophical disputes that these great minds of Greece were having. There's a very famous dispute that is between Xenophon and his wife. Xenophon was an ancient Greek historian, military strategist, and also philosopher and student of Aspasia. So, Xenophon and his wife were having an argument, and Aspasia helped them see that striving to be the best husband and wife that they could be for each other is the best thing that they can do for happiness and well-being, rather than coveting your neighbor's stuff. That will get you nowhere. And apparently, Xenophon and his wife really took this to heart, and they both respected Aspasia and her thoughts. Unfortunately, we don't have Xenophon's wife's thoughts and feelings, but we do have Xenophon's. And he was highly influenced by Aspasia, which can be seen in his writings on the ideas of service, utilitarianism, egalitarianism. And I would venture to say, based off of his writings, that Xenophon was a feminist, or what we consider to be a feminist now, because he respected women. He respected not only Aspasia, but he also respected his wife, and wrote about how he thought she was his full partner in household management and contributed as much as he did to the welfare of the estate. We stan Xenophon. We love him. He's great. And Xenophon was not alone in his deference to Aspasia. The elite men of Athenian society would bring themselves and their wives to Aspasia for learning, and she even created an entire salon for the elite women of Athens to come and learn and partake in rhetoric and academic discourse, which is incredible, because in a society that thought the most important role and contribution a woman held was as a transmitter of Athenian citizenship from father to son and nothing more, for Aspasia to carve out a place for herself and other women to show that they were much more than future Athenian taxpayer incubators is incredible. Aspasia occupied this really interesting space in Athenian society because she was a foreigner, so she wasn't Athenian and she wasn't a citizen. So she was kind of outside of the social rules, but she was incredibly educated, and she was an excellent rhetorician and philosopher and thinker, so she was respected. In a way, her foreignness really benefited her, and that kind of space, I feel like, made others feel more comfortable with listening to a woman teach and speak on all of these important topics, which is really interesting and quite serendipitous. But being at the forefront of so many changes and being so public, while also being a woman, and a foreign woman at that, did come at a high price. Since the dawn of time, dear one, haters have indeed hated. And the Kendrick Lamar of haters in the ancient Greek world, when it came to Aspasia, were the comedic poets, specifically Aristophanes, who I shall give the nickname of Aristophanes because he sucks ass. Just point blank. Hardcore. Don't like this man. He's the worst. I consider Aristophanes to be one of the first red pill manosphere men in history. And if you don't know what that is, I truly envy you, dear one. I do. You don't need to Google it. Just know that they're not great people. But I digress. Aristophanes sucks 7 ways to Sunday and is for sure on the castor oil list, okay? And before I lightly poisoned him with castor oil to make his guts turn into Mount Vesuvius, I feel that it's only appropriate to go Shakespearean on his ass. I've been obsessed with Shakespearean insults lately, so these are the 2 that I picked out for him, okay? Number 1, thou art unfit for any place but hell. And number 2, thy tongue outvenoms all worms of the Nile. Shakespeare sounds better in a southern accent. I'm not going to take any notes on that. And then after I said those things to him, I would remove the communal poop stick sponge from every bathroom in a 10-mile radius because he sucks that bad. And I hear you asking, but TK, what did he do to garner such vitriol from arguably the nicest historian on the internet? And to that I say, well, thank you. You're too kind. Well, I write these jokes myself, and sometimes I question past me. Anyways, let me tell you what he did to our girl Aspasia, all right? First of all, in his little poems, he made Aspasia out to be nothing but a little slooty sloot, nothing but a whore, if you will, okay? And then it escalated. It escalated, because then he blamed her for starting 2 wars. Count 'em, 1, 2. And then she was put on trial for impiety and accused of using her academic salons as a means to infect the minds of Athenian women with immoral thoughts. What? He wrote so many ridiculous things about Aspasia, and because I don't want to give him any more airtime than I absolutely have to, I'm just going to summarize what he said. So basically, he blamed Aspasia for the Peloponnesian War because he said that 2 of her, acolytes, people who were under her in the house of Aspasia, were kidnapped, and then she was really upset about it, and she went to Pericles and was like, Pericles, they stole my girls, and Pericles was like, oh no, we gotta get them back. I'm gonna start a whole war just for your 2 girls. And then Aristophanes was like, how dare you start a whole war because just 2 women were stolen? Bleh. What a little simp. Thank you for I drooled. That was so dumb. Why am I drooling? Okay, my drool has been cleaned up. This is not why the Peloponnesian War started at all. The Peloponnesian War started for a multitude of reasons, some of which being years of conflict between Athens and Sparta over territory, trade, just random bouts of fighting and stuff. This is giving very much like Helen of Troy, like the Trojan War started because of Helen, which is no. But once the hater train left the station, more comedic poets piled on top of Aspasia, and she was even put on trial for impiety, like we talked about earlier. And thank goodness that Pericles the Platypus came to her aid, because who knows what would have happened, because they also started going after the other members of the Super Smarts Philosophy Club and started putting them on trial for impiety as well. So if they were putting the dudes on trial for impiety and they were putting Aspasia on trial for impiety, who knows what would have happened if Pericles the Platypus had not been there to help her. And I would love to say that the hate for Aspasia was isolated to those outside of the direct circle of the Super Smart Philosophers Bestie Club. But the betrayal runs deep for this next stop on the Aspasia hate train. Some of Socrates' own students were known to write a terrible thing or two about their teacher's respected teacher, Aspasia. A man named Antisthenes, which is a terrible name, was a student of Socrates, and he not only hated Aspasia, but he also was bitterly jealous of her child with Pericles the Platypus. You see, Athens had a silly, goofy rule that stated if your mother was foreign, you could never be a full Athenian citizen, even if your dad was a free Athenian man. It didn't matter. You came out of a foreign woman, therefore you're foreign, I guess. And unfortunately for Antisthenes, too many consonants in that name, his mom was not from Athens. Oh my God. His mom was not from Athens. And therefore, he could never be awarded citizenship, which was like a stab in the heart because he was super into like Athens stuff. But he was like fine with it until things really got out of hand because nepotism reared its silver-spooned head when Pericles' two other children with his first wife died during a massive plague. And because Periwinkle was now heirless, he had no children that were Athenian citizens, the Athenian assembly was like, okay, we can't have like our top dude not have any heirs, so we're going to grant Aspasia and Pericles' son full citizenship, even though Aspasia was a foreign woman. And gee willikers, okay, that really set off the baby man Antisthenes. He could not hold in his red pill manosphere hate any longer. That was it. And he wrote one of the most hilarious self-burns of all time. He hated women, and he thought that any association with them was weakness. Does that sound familiar to our day and age right now? I think it does. Antisthenes, I hate that name. He was obsessed with Pericles and Aspasia's relationship, and he tried to write about their closeness and obvious mutual respect in a way that twisted it to make Periwinkle look like an emasculated sissy simp man. He self-reported that he was like a sad, lonely man because he wrote, quote, upon leaving and returning home each day, he actually kissed the creature. And he tried to make it seem like that kiss, hello, and goodbye every day was a bad thing. Like Pericles was not man enough to lead Athens because of this. And I feel like that's a really big logical leap between you kiss your partner goodbye and being a shit ruler. Like you're not able to rule. Like, what are you talking about, you man with too many consonants in your name? That doesn't make sense at all. Loving your wife and showing affection to the women in your life does not make you, hey, listen, this does not make you less of a man, all right? My brother, who is a tall, scary tattoo artist with tattoos all over his face. He's got a scythe on one side. He's got a eagle foot on the other. He's got a giant centipede crawling up his neck. He's got piercings all over his face. He's big and he's scary, and it does not matter how old he is. If I go to his tattoo shop, if my mom goes to his tattoo shop, it doesn't matter who is in that shop. If I say, love you, Bubby, bye-bye, he goes, love you, sissy, bye-bye. It does not matter. It does not matter. Same thing with my mom. Love you, Mom. Bye-bye. Hug, little kiss on the cheek. And he's one of the most masculine people that I know in my life. Okay? So, I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but you need to know that it's okay. If you were wondering, if anybody out there was wondering if it makes you weak to like show affection to the women in your life, it doesn't. It does not. I am off on a tangent. Anyways, to Aspasia, whatever that man's name is, writing this did not make you look cool, sir. It made you look like a sad, lonely member of the He-Man Woman Hater Club. Okay? Gross. But unfortunately, what he wrote is now like studied all the time and in the general zeitgeist of rhetorical education. And I could go on, because lots of other people wrote some terrible things about Aspasia. But despite all of the attacks, from what we know of Aspasia, she kept on keeping on. She kept on going. She kept on teaching. She did not care about what these guys were doing. At least we don't know if she did. We have no idea how she felt about this. But we know that she continued teaching these great thinkers of Greece until she disappeared. Here's the thing, dear one. Everything that we know about Aspasia comes from second and even third-hand accounts. None of her work, except for maybe one speech that we'll discuss later, survives. We can only piece together her life from those around her and those who came after her. And all of those people were men. But before we get too discouraged about this, it's exactly the same for Socrates. None of his personal works survive. Everything we know of him comes from his students and contemporary writers and people that wrote about him like hundreds of years later. So it's fine. Like, it's okay. Kind of. But unlike Socrates, who had the advantage of being born with a peepee and therefore, like, better, I guess, whatever, according to them, the lack of writing we have from her perspective leaves so much space for propaganda, slander, and purposeful exclusion. It's not what happens with Socrates. For several decades, Aspasia's very existence was debated and questioned, and when her existence was acknowledged, it was often done so in a joking way. Dr. a.k.a. Carlson, in her article, How One Woman Disappeared from the History of Rhetoric, writes, "The treatment afforded Aspasia illustrates several of the techniques used by scholars to obscure the influence of women in rhetorical theory. The most telling lies in the use of humor. The claim that other people were joking whenever they said anything positive about her. Essentially, whenever a contemporary source spoke positively about Aspasia, it was written off as a joke. But when the source was criticizing her, it was taken very seriously." Later on in the article, Dr. a.k.a. Carlson goes on to explain that of the 4 students of Socrates who wrote about Aspasia, 2 of them were positive, 1 of them was like ambiguous/neutral, and the very last was extremely negative, extremely negative. And according to many historians of rhetoric, the first 3 are just like silly, goofy jokes. They're just haha, funny. This woman wasn't actually doing anything. Of course they weren't serious about praising Aspasia, a woman. Gross. But the third one, okay, the one that I'm laughing because this is ridiculous. The third one slandered her, calling her a little whore. That one's real. That's the real one. So, that's the one that stuck. It's just so ridiculous. And because of this, Aspasia became no longer the teacher of Socrates, but the courtesan of Pericles. And there's nothing wrong with sex work. Absolutely not. Sex work is real work. But that wasn't the legacy of Aspasia. And just like that, her legacy is gone in a flash. But her purposeful exclusion doesn't stop there, dear one. Once again, according to Dr. a.k.a. Carlson, a technique called alternative explanation is also used, especially when discussing what Plato wrote about Aspasia in his book, Menexenus, which is a Socratic dialogue, essentially a series of conversations between Socrates and this other guy named Menexenus. Oh my God. Socrates also had a son named Menexenus, but it's a different guy. So we have these 2 people in conversation. That's what this book is about. Many male Platonic scholars of Plato, tried to answer the question, why Aspasia? Why does Plato talk about Aspasia, a girl? Gross. And they use these very fancy workarounds and complicated answers, avoiding at all costs the very simple Occam's razor answer, the very simple explanation that Plato simply wrote about her because she was an acclaimed rhetorician at the time. So frustrating. The kinds of alternative explanations that they used were things like scholars calling the Menexenus a comedy, or a writing that was out of the ordinary, or even calling it a low effort piece of writing that shouldn't be taken seriously. Okay. And they also, again, used the idea that it was a joke. That it was just a big old joke. Everybody was in on it. Aspasia was just a funny little ha-ha joke and not to be taken seriously. She's also been explained away as a metaphoric link to a male philosopher because no woman could possibly exist for her own sake. And this happens over and over and over again throughout the centuries, creating an amalgamation of things that are just not who Aspasia was, not what she was about. And to quote Dr. Shuri Carlson for the final time, after a few centuries, the layers of disguise are so thick that the actual woman is lost among the things that men choose to say of her. As a result, it becomes easy to push her into the margins because no one is sure that she does not belong there. Aspasia thus achieves that perfect glory of which Pericles speaks, hers greatest of all, whose praise or blame is least found on the lips of men. Even with his proximity to such an incredible woman, Pericles too came to the same patriarchal mindset that the greatest aspiration a woman could have is to not be spoken about by men. And there's a reason that I haven't really talked about Pericles the Platypus much in this episode. First of all, frankly, I don't give a shit about him at all. I don't care. Secondly, Aspasia's story is almost always intertwined with his, but it doesn't need to be. She's her own person. Her story is her own. And there's a huge debate that's been going on for literal centuries about whether Aspasia wrote Perry the Platypus's funeral oration or not. The funeral oration is this big fancy speech that Perry gave during the Peloponnesian War, but Aspasia may have written it. And frankly, we will never know, so I don't care. And I feel like that particular debate gets people stuck in the weeds a little bit, and I'm not ready to die on that hill. I don't care about that hill. The hill that I'm on with my fact bullets and my truth canon is the hill of getting Aspasia back into general education. According to Dr. Shuri, she's not included in standard rhetorical courses or Greek philosophy courses. And as far as my research shows, the Menexenus is not standard reading in rhetorical courses, even though it's one of Plato's major works about Socrates. She should be a common household name, as common of a household name as all of the men that she taught. Socrates, Plato, Cicero, Pericles. It should be Aspasia included in there as well. It's so frustrating. I'm so frustrated. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of, well, did Aspasia write the funeral oration or did she not? No, she didn't. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And I know I said that the previous time was the last time that I would quote Dr. A. Shuri Carlson, but she's just said some really good stuff. So just once more, the real problem is that it is difficult to push for a broadening of rhetorical history when one does not even know precisely who is available for inclusion. Scholars who desire to bring women into the rhetorical fold have the unenviable task of discovering where these women have been hidden. As Virginia Woolf noted, quote, "One likes romantically to feel oneself a deliverer advancing with lights across the waste of years to rescue some stranded ghost who has been waiting, appealing, forgotten in the growing gloom." End quote. But in practice, it means sifting through endless amounts of material to garner a few lines of a woman's thoughts. Yet, if women are ever to claim even a part ownership of rhetorical theory, that task must begin. And I'd like to extend that thought even further to not only rhetorical history, but also all history. Medical history, scientific history, math history, military history, all the histories, every history. You and I, my delicious donut, have taken the first steps. We have begun the arduous task of shifting through history to find these women. So thank you. Thank you for being here on this journey with me to uncover these hidden women of history. Frustration Nation, man. Sometimes I just get so frustrated when doing these episodes, but I always, we end on a happy note. We always end on a happy note. So you and I, we're doing our job. We're learning the things. We're being not unintentional. We're being intentional with our consumption of media. Good job, you. Good job, us. I don't really have a good final thought for today, other than the fact that I want to talk about this movie that came out on Netflix recently about the all-black women's military unit in World War II. I forgot the title of the movie. What was the title of the movie? Hold on. Okay, I just found it. It's the 6888. I want to watch that so bad, and I feel that recently the Hollywood has been taking note of telling more women's history stories. So I love that. I would love to do a watch party of the 688. What did I say? 6888. I would love to do a watch party on that. Let me know what you think about that. I would have to find out how to logistically do that, but I think that would be really fun. So yeah, not the greatest final thought for this episode, but that's what I've been thinking about. I'd love to watch that movie with you. Well, dear one, that is all she wrote for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been so spicy this season so far, and I absolutely love it. We're a little bit unhinged, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Thank you so much for listening to the end. I really appreciate you. It helps so much, and I just appreciate it so much. So if you'd like to support the podcast in other ways, you can donate to the app. You can leave a rating or review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on any platform that you listen to. You can also join us over on the book club over on Fable. We read one book every 1.5 months. It's a very casual book club. You can get yourself some super cute merch, and you can join us over on Patreon. All of those things are great. Don't forget, if you would like to join us on the Trova trip, you can do so. And I love you so much. Happy 2025. I think I said that in the last episode, but happy 2025 again. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you are having a great first few weeks of 2025. I know a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to have really crazy New Year's resolutions, but just know that you don't have to do that. You can have chill, soft resolutions. One of your resolutions can be just drink more water, like I'm going to right now. Take a little sippy sip of water. Do something kind for yourself. Go outside, touch some grass. I love you so much. I will see you next week. We're talking to another actual tattoo archaeologist, and this time about Southeast Asian tattoos. So I hope you join us for that. Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, see you later. Love you. Bye. Oh, Jesus. That is so good. Good? Yes. Dangerous. That girl is so dangerous. That girl is a bad girl. Yeah. What do I look like?
Movie called Purge. You're the one of the leader.
I look like I'm a leader from the Purge. Is it because I have all the lights right now? Here you are. Do I look a little bit like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Yes, I do, but that's okay. Do I look a little like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Yes, I do, but that's okay. Ted is sitting on my lap, so I just turned on the camera with my lipstick so that I could reach it because she's sitting here and I didn't want to disturb her. I look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I look like... Whoa, so I've got so many drinks. Do I look like I'm going to read your tarot cards? Tarot, not tarot. Tarot? I don't know. But that's what I look like I'm going to do. I'm about to read you some tarot cards. And who knows, maybe I just might. Game. We're good. Oh no, we're not good. You gotta... How about you? Oh, this coffee is so good. It's too good.